Probably some of you have seen this pirate movie, and I might have a reference to that on the next slide. So, who am I? My name is Joakim Tauren. I work for Visma Product Security. I am an application security architect, and here is my awesome movie reference. So let this day be remembered as the day when you almost caught Visma. Of course, everyone needs a little bit of movie references in their life. And just to make it clear, even though I have a pirate hat on me in the picture, that does not mean that I'm a pirate myself. It's just a nice little movie reference in this case. So, this talk is obviously about something that happened at Visma. And if there is anyone from our Visma CCERT listening, I just want you to know that you are awesome. And a lot of this that has happened is due to you being awesome. So kudos to you guys for all the work you do, for all the hard work you do, for the weekends that you spend trying to catch bad guys. So I'm not sure if guys at different, companies that do this kind of stuff get a lot of recognition about the things that they do, but I really want to give a shout out to the guys doing the actual work here. So I really want to give sort of a huge shout out to the guys doing this. So why am I giving this talk? Well, one of the reasons is that I'm a very strong transparency advocate. And I've talked about a big breach that we had before as well on HelSec. And I really strongly believe that the more transparent we are and the more transparent other companies are, that we can all learn from it and we can all grow as companies and become more mature, share information with each other, and essentially catch bad guys faster. The other reason is that with breaches and sort of security incidents, a lot of companies are kind of fearful of bringing them forth and being transparent. So if there's anything I can do, at least I can try to light the path for others, and hopefully others will follow. If not, then maybe I didn't do a good job, or maybe the wrong people were listening, or something else. But at least I'm trying. So we want to be transparent about these issues, and hopefully others can follow in our path if they haven't done so already. And if you've been transparent, then that is great. The other thing that I want to talk about in this talk is also the fact that we've been sort of helped in the past by someone else being transparent and sharing with the authorities a lot of information about ongoing attacks and so forth. So we also want to return the favor. So if we share with the authorities, then other companies can be protected as well. And I think this is very important for all companies involved in cybercrime in one way or another, is that we return the favor by cooperating with the authorities and sharing information with the authorities, so that in essence, someone else can benefit from it as well. All right, so as you know, I've talked about some attacks that have happened before against us, but I guess you could say that we're under full stack attack. Now you're allowed to borrow this statement. Maybe you can use it in your company. Maybe you're also under a full stack attack. But essentially, from Visma's point of view, this means not only are our employees under attack, but also our applications, our infrastructure, pretty much everything regarding Visma is under attack constantly. So I would say that we're more or less under siege all the time. And I'm not sure if it's because we're transparent about things or it's just because cybercrime is growing. But or maybe it's because we gained a lot of visibility over the years. We've progressed, we've become better at what we're doing, so we're seeing more things. Maybe that's the reason. All right, so to the tale itself. The day that might be remembered as the day they almost caught Visma. All right, so this story starts with all kinds of warnings and alerts everywhere. We're posting alerts, we're being phished left and right. And some of the last warnings were on a Friday, thank God it's Friday, but please do not click. And we're trying to warn everyone as much as possible that they do not click these links from these malicious actors. So I'm enjoying my Friday evening as I normally do on my computer because I'm a nerd. So, I'm doing OCP. I'm not sure if a lot of people knew that, but I'm trying to improve my technical skills and I'm just chilling. But then on Saturday morning, my boss calls, and he doesn't normally call me related to corporate security, but he wants to know, he wants me to know that stuff is going on. And I'm like, what? I'm trying to wake up, trying to fully comprehend what's going on. And I'm like, but didn't we warn about this? We tried to warn everyone and so forth. But yes, someone clicked. And of course, this happens, we're all humans. And we really should never blame the person that has clicked. We should blame us for not being able to protect the person that was clicking, right? So one of the main points I could take out of this in my talk is that, okay, someone clicked, but why? We tried to warn, yeah, but were we really successful in warning people? First of all, Visma is a really big company. We have like 11,000 employees and growing, and we're buying companies all the time. I think we bought almost 40 companies this year. So reaching everyone, first of all, is really hard. And maybe others can relate to the same thing, right? Maybe you might be able to reach everyone. You have a smaller company, but that doesn't mean that everyone is listening to you. So why is awareness so hard? Well, because not everyone reads it. It's pretty simple, but it's also very hard. And I think of it kind of like this. So if I ask a plumber to start producing rocket fuel, it's going to take some years before he can really start building or producing rocket fuel, right? And we're security people. We're kind of nerdy. We have our tinfoil hats on. We might communicate in a way that maybe it's not appealing to a lot of people. And I'm not saying that that's the case in this case, but in general, I think we really need to learn and somehow be able to actually get awareness out to everyone. And this is a joint effort. All of us plumbers need to start producing rocket fuel in some way. And I think is really a community effort where we need to sort of look at it, at ourselves and each other and see how can we actually do this, because we're nerds and we're not necessarily the best communicators always. We're trying, we're learning, but in big companies and even in smaller ones, there's no way you can have 100% reach. And that also brings me to another point, which is a very unpopular opinion, maybe, but especially in this line of work or in this field, policies don't work. And the reason for that is people don't read them. And if they read them, how long will they remember them, right? So you made this awesome policy for security. Everyone needs to read it, and it has everything in it. And then they read it, they go back to their normal job, and they start doing the things that they normally do during their job, right? And it's not necessarily related to security. You know, most of the time it isn't. And people are people, so they tend to forget. And you know, they might remember for some time. And also, if you make it mandatory, they will be forced to remember for a time. But how long is that time? We don't really know. So this unpopular opinion, maybe it's more popular than I think, but I just don't think that policies work. And that is kind of also one of the reasons why awareness doesn't work, because you're either being a spammer, or you're not communicating enough, or you're communicating too much, you're communicating in a way that people don't understand, or you're communicating too simply. There's always something to be improved when it comes to communication. So I have a challenge for you guys. And if you can manage to create an awareness campaign that would reach most of the people in your, let's say, organization, or maybe you have a target group or something that you want to reach, if you can create a campaign or even educate people to a degree where you can say that I've actually reached most people. It doesn't need to be 90%, but like a big percentage of the people. Then, and without making it mandatory, so you're making it appealing in some way, then you've done a real damn good job. And I want to learn from you. Please teach me, senpai. I really want to know how to do this. And this is one of the biggest challenges, I think, that we face in the security industry. How can we do this? I don't have the answer. But it would be really cool if someone made an awesome awareness campaign about, let's say, one topic, and you actually got most people listening to it and understand it and actually do it. Oops, now I jumped to the end. My bad. Heiki's keyboard. I sometimes click the wrong button. So I can kind of blame Heiki because this keyboard is too sexy. Sorry, Heiki. No, the keyboard is amazing. I just miss tap it sometimes. All right, so what happened at Visma? As I said before, we've been targeted a lot of the time. Sorry, Heiki, once again. And this time we had waves of different phishing campaigns against our employees. Each phishing wave was different. They had different messages. They had different malware. The attack window was between 1700 GMT plus 3 and 1 a.m. in the morning. And what I think I mentioned earlier is that when you see sort of some timestamps with different attacks, that might give you an indication of something. I'm not saying that it's an indication necessarily of the attackers in this case, but in general, when you have timestamps ranging from a certain time point to another time point, you can normally deduce something at least about the attack. And in this case, all emails looked clean. SPFs were okay. It was real domains, etc. So here we have some examples of these emails, and with these emails, you can see that the attackers have really understood some parts of Visma. So for example, they use Gmail in Visma. So we use Gmail in Visma. They have done some other investigations towards Visma as well. So they know that we use G Suite, and they can send us like links to a Google document. And most people in Visma probably don't think of it as that strange because we do use the G Suite, right? And of course, as always with phishing, they're trying to make it look like it's urgent and all the sort of general phishing stuff, right? And I've told you before in a talk earlier that it's not normally only our employees that are getting attacked and phished, but we're also seeing this against some of our products in sort of different campaigns spanning different times. And it's very common that someone clicks it, regardless of if it's an employee, if it's a customer. It always happens. And usually this is one of the most sort of common successful-ish attacks that we have against this or our products. So here, of course, you can see from the attachments that these would, for example, catch your attention pretty quickly, because if you receive a termination list, then you're like, what? Am I getting fired? And of course, who doesn't like parties? So Halloween employee survey, all these kind of things. They really want to catch your mind and catch your interest and try to get you to click these things. So they are really, really good. And sometimes, you get waves of not so good campaigns, and then they transition into better campaigns again. In this case, it was the Ryuk, I don't know how to pronounce that, the Ryuk Ransomware. And phishing was, of course, the initial attack vector. And then when you clicked it, you got the Boor downloader that will download additional modules to your computer. They would start doing recon, and they would start stealing credentials and going deeper into the infrastructure. And when you're attacking a big company like Visma or any other big company, the networks are in general very large and complex. So pivoting from a user's computer to a server somewhere is generally not very difficult, because there's a multitude of options out there. Depending on the size of the company, of course, for a smaller company, it could be almost as easy, but maybe there's just less options. In Visma, it's a big company, there's a lot of options, right? So in this case, they then used Cobalt Strike to further their attack. And they got deeper into the infrastructure, and we then stopped them. So this was really an exciting moment, in the sense that if we hadn't stopped them, it would have been a really bad Monday. We do know the systems that they could have potentially encrypted for ransom, And let me tell you, it would have been a very, very interesting Monday for most people at our company. But luckily, because, as I said, our CSERT is amazing, they couldn't do it. So now we can tell the story about an almost successful attack. But what's really interesting about this actually is that, as I said before, our CSERT is amazing, and they're starting to mature in ways that is quite amazing actually, and they're now able to analyze quite deeply into all these different attacks that are facing us. So in this case, for example, they could analyze that, these guys are using very sort of agile methods, basically kind of the same stuff that we use when we create modern cloud software, right? The only difference is that they have, the actual payload is then signed with a certificate. We would have everything in the cloud, right? Because it's a cloud service. But in their case, essentially the difference is that they have a signed payload that would then, that they would use on your computer once they've gotten you to click that link and download everything. And then they actually recompile it after every few campaigns. So they recreate the malware, they recompile it to make it more difficult to detect again. And of course, it's not recognized by any AV vendor, not the ones that we're using either. And when they actually do get to the target itself, they will use Cobalt Strike and just sort of point and click and travel around your network like it's a holiday destination, trying to find the gold, or maybe a treasure hunt. Kind of like a treasure hunt actually for a pirate trying to find the gold, And they also hide their traffic using MRDNS. And if you are in the market for agile malware or you want to create it, develop it, then you probably know about anonymous code signing certificates, which are really great. But we won't get into details of those, but they're out there if you were to need them. And in this case, they also use those as well. So in addition to being an agile cloud company, Visma also does agile cybersecurity. We were able to pinpoint a lot of their infrastructure. We were able to communicate with the authorities all the time about our findings and just give them as much information as possible. I really, really hope that if you're ever under attack and you're having some kind of issue going on, or you're being under attack, that you would share this with the authorities so that the authorities have all the information they need to be able to share that with other companies as well. In a lot of cases, when you do that and you do it quickly, you might be able to actually protect other companies. So I find it really, really important that each company that is being under attack, let's say you can stop it, maybe you can't stop it. Either way, you really need to make sure that you are cooperating with the authorities and giving them as much information as possible so that they can use this to prevent the cyber criminals of utilizing the same attack techniques and the same stuff on other companies. And if you're wondering about the picture on the right, it's from our cyber threat intel system. And as you can see, here's some of their infrastructure highlighted. So I want to bring up another thing, which then is if you were to have a cyber attack targeted, and let's say you've already been compromised, etc. Maybe you've taken a memory image of the actual attack, then you could probably utilize this open source tool that we created. So I'll show you like a brief video just of what it looks like when you analyze a memory image. So if you're being under attack and you want to analyze what has actually happened, this could help then you to understand what actually was happening, and perhaps you can find out what the actual culprit was behind the attack, and that might help you then in the investigation. And of course, you can always use companies that are specialized in this, but if you cannot afford it for one reason or another, I recommend that you look into this tool, for example, or maybe someone can teach you how to use this tool, just so that you can utilize the features that it has. So what it does is that it simplifies sort of the analysis process behind trying to find out what the malware actually does. And in the background, it's using all kinds of third-party libraries, etc., and it's described on the GitHub page what it uses. But in this case, this is an actual attack where we found the PowerShell script that was doing some malicious stuff. And I just wanted to show this example because we released this as open source so that anyone who is being under attack can then hopefully faster get to the bad guys behind it. So this tool was created by my colleague, Alan Said, who is in our team. And it has been used already now in a couple of attacks against Visma. And here you can see him just, highlighting some process IDs, etc. So what can we learn from the attack that this time didn't succeed? Well, we need to somehow be able to provide everyone with better awareness, because it's not the victim's fault that they clicked it. It could have been me, it could have been someone else, it could have been anyone, really. There's not really a perfect way of doing awareness. It's very hard. And I think the lessons that we can learn from these attacks is not only about how to stop them, how to catch the bad guys, but it's also about how can we be better? How can we stop them better? Maybe we need to find better technical solutions so that these things don't happen. And some of those are for us, including, of course, better awareness. I think is kind of like you always need to be better at awareness. But for our case, some of the other findings were that we really need to review our network infrastructure, because in some cases it's a bit too open. So we need to sort of try to close it down and implement this zero trust strategy where we really shouldn't trust any device on the network. And if you haven't implemented zero trust strategy, I really recommend you to look into it. It's a great methodology on how to secure your network, because you really essentially should never trust any device on your network. And that's kind of what zero trust is. The other thing that I find it very interesting when it comes to cyber attacks is that if this happened in your organization, first of all, we're talking about, crisis plans, media people. Do you have a plan to, if this would have been successful, do you have a plan to mitigate the attack? Do you have a plan for the media? But also, do you have some kind of victim care? Because think about the person who is clicking it. do you have something for that person? Do you offer them support? Do you offer them therapy? I mean, in some cases, if this person clicked it just because it was very well made, the campaign, right? And they clicked it, do you have something to take care of that person? What we're seeing a lot of in different cases is that people actually tend to have issues with after clicking, for example, or after being sort of the first point of attack, after being the one who clicked, they actually they might have mental issues with this. They really need to be better together. We need to take care of the people, even the victims, the person that clicked. It could have been me. So if it was me, I really want someone to sort of comfort me, take care of me, make sure that it's okay. Everyone makes a mistake. And even though it made the attack successful, we really need to make sure that the person that clicked is not the one to be blamed. And I think this is probably an overlooked issue in cyber attacks. We're always talking about, do you have a plan for the crisis? Do you have a media plan? Do you have this and that in place? Do you have a contact with authorities? That is, of course, important. Do you do this? Do you do that? But then in a very successful phishing attacks, do you take care of the person that clicked? So another important thing that I really want to bring out here in the last slides is that if you're ever targeted and an attack is going on, even when it's going on, help others by reporting to authorities. Report to the police. Make sure that you know your contacts in the police. Make sure you know how to report things to the police. Because when you do this, we can catch bad guys together faster. We can help others. Return the favor. Maybe someone sometimes reported something to the authorities and that saved your ass. Maybe that has actually happened to you already, but you didn't realize it. So make sure that you also do it. Where do you think that these authorities are getting this information about attacks, indications of compromise, all these different data? They're coming from companies and individuals that are reporting it to them. So make sure that you also report it to the authorities. Then my last question is, if you're under attack, but you don't know it, is there an easy way for me to report it to you? If we're investigating or another company is investigating an attack and we find out that your company is under attack, is there an easy way to report it to you? Or do you take reports from the local CERT? Do you have connections with the police? Maybe make sure that you have these connections in place and make sure that they are able to contact you if there's something going on. The other takeaway is, I want to ask, do you take care of your victims? Do you talk to them? Do you support them? Do you offer them some kind of care? And the last one, and this is basically like me trying to ask for help. Can you create appealing unforced content that is like not mandatory, but is appealing in some way so that people would actually listen? And can you reach them all? Do you have a magic recipe that I could use? I would really love that. So if you do, let me know. I want to know. And with that, I thank you guys. That was the end of my talk. I'll leave you with the takeaways.
Thank you, Joakim. It was a really interesting talk. We have a time, I guess, for one question. It's kind of question. So can you open up the scale of the attack? How many mails were sent or clicked, and how many systems would have been affected by the attack?
Well, I mean, I don't know the exact amounts. Probably I could ask them from the CSERT. But we're talking, since we have 11,000 employees, we're talking about most being targeted most of the time. So you can multiply 11,000 by whatever number you want for each campaign, right? So thousands.
Okay, thank you. So there are a few more questions. So if you have time to go and answer those, would be great. And in the meantime, we will have a short break before the second talk of the evening.
Yep, thank you.